That's it from CNBC, first in business worldwide. Jeff, back to you.
Julia, thanks. Good to see you. Goldman Sachs was taken to the woodshed by lawmakers on Tuesday after failing to acknowledge they had any regrets for their role in the financial meltdown. One of the senators on the committee was Ted Kaufman, a Democrat from Delaware, who blistered Goldman executives for not being accountable.
Two things I'm getting out of these hearings. Number one, nobody did anything wrong. This was a natural disaster like a hurricane hit. The mortgage market fell, and nobody knew it, and nobody forecasted it. And the second thing is that these things were just something that happened.
Despite the SEC suit against Goldman Sachs and the rising tide of populist anger at Wall Street, the vote to begin debate on a financial reform bill failed for the third straight time today in the Senate. Senator Ted Kaufman, the man you just saw, joins us live now from Capitol Hill. Senator, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Jeff, thanks for having me.
How exasperated were you listening to the Goldman executives? Do you feel like they just didn't give you what you wanted?
Well, I didn't. It wasn't that what I wanted. It was just trying to. I guess it was really. I was trying to get straight. We had. This is the fourth hearing we had. The first hearing we had, we went to Washington Mutual, found out how the largest bank failure in history. Then we went and talked. We had the regulators come in and talk to us, and then the rating agencies, and all of them painted the same picture, which was that it was widespread knowledge that the housing market was in trouble long before it ended, and frankly, long before Goldman Sachs stopped selling the RMBSs through their CDOs. So, you know, but no one in Goldman Sachs, including Lloyd Blankfein, would admit that there was a point at which they decided the market was going south. And at the same time, they were selling these to their clients. On their own, they were selling the very same security short. They wouldn't even admit that that was a conflict of interest. And why that was important is that at what point did they know the market was going south? And you have to believe, since they won't admit it, that at that point they were still selling their CDOs, these CDOs that end up being worthless, to their clients. And that really is serious in terms of how we should deal with this in the financial regulatory reform bill.
What good did this hearing do? And in your perfect world, what would come out of it?
Well, I think a lot of things. I think one of the things is that we just got to be in this bill. We just have to make sure that a lot of these practices are much better regulated. And in fact, they're spelled out in law. One of the problems we had in the last 8 years is that Goldman Sachs could do this kind of behavior and not worry about it because there was a strong feeling among leaders in the last administration and even the head of the Fed, Alan Greenspan, that we don't need regulators. This will just self-regulate. Well, clearly, somebody has to watch these folks, very carefully. And the example I use, Jeff, it's like a football game where you decide, the referees out there keep blowing their whistles, and, that really stops the game. We should just pull the referees off the field and let the football players play. And we all know how that would turn out, and we now know how this turned out. So we need strong legislation, financial regulatory reform. It's clearly Goldman Sachs doesn't get the picture on what's right and what's right, or Washington Mutual or the rating agency or any of them. And then we need strong regulators.
And on that topic of financial reform, I want to show you what Republican Senator Susan Collins said this morning on the Today Show about getting this to a vote. Take a listen. We'll talk about it on the back end.
Republicans are trying to strengthen the financial reform bill. We want better protections against taxpayer-funded bailouts. The bill right now is far too weak in that regard. So we're trying to strengthen the bill to bring a better bill on the floor.
Right.
Senator, what is your response to that?
Look, I think the world of Susan Collins. I think she's a great senator, but it's time for the backroom negotiating between a few Republican senators and a few Democratic senators to stop. It's been going on for 6 months. It's time to bring it to a floor and have a vote, and let Susan Collins and the other senators, and she's very good and very articulate. She can make those arguments. I happen to think, I myself think that the bill is good, but it can be improved in this area. But there isn't much credibility when you're saying, well, this is wrong and that's wrong. But I tell you what, we don't want to bring it up on the floor of the United States Senate where all the world can see what's going to happen. We want it done behind closed doors, and then we'll bring it to the United States Senate. I mean, this is clearly, I just don't get it in terms of what my Republican colleagues are trying to sell. They've not offered any real options. It's easy to be on the sidelines and make comments and be critical of this and that. Chris Dodd, I think, has done a great job working with the Republicans. I mean, for months, he worked with Senator Shelby, Senator Corker, the Republican senator from Tennessee, worked from the Democratic Senator Warner from Virginia, Jack Reed, Democrat from Rhode Island, worked with Judd Gregg, the Republican from New Hampshire. So this has been going on for a long time. It's now time to bring it to a floor, let people offer their amendments. If they have ideas, put them forward. But frankly, there haven't been many ideas. It's just this, we should not vote on this yet.
Senator Ted Kaufman of Delaware, on the eve of what could be a very, very long night for you, sir, and many of your colleagues.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Great, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Now we want to get to the fastest 3 minutes in news. Well, I guess you'll decide that. We go down to the wire, including what happens when strippers and the tax code clash.